there's not a whole lot of exactness in the medical school admissions process, but there's one, and that is. Hi, Katie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from just outside of Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. How's the weather there?
Not too bad. It's actually starting to warm up, so the ice and
Good.
stuff has all melted. So
Yes. Good. That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for joining us tonight on Am I Ready? And we're looking forward to meeting you and hearing all about you and eventually making some determination about where things are and what I think you should do in terms of application and when and so we'll get started. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go to look at mapped and you've got a lot going on in the in the GPA graph. So what we see on
Yeah.
this graph is calculated AMCAS GPA cumulative of 3.24 and a science GPA of 3.16. And we see the various lines on the GPA graph. The one that I am really there's two that I'm most interested in typically on this graph, and that would be the blue line, which is the cumulative GPA, and it kind of shows the where things stand, and it also shows mathematically how things don't change a whole lot as you go along. Once you have accumulated a lot of hours and stuff like that. But then the other thing that's interesting is the green line, which is the semester by semester line, and it shows fluctuations and stuff like that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
Okay. So I had a very interesting journey in college. I suffered a personal loss on literally my first day of college.
Oh wow!
So I lost my sister after
Oh
being her
wow!
caretaker for a year. She was treated for cancer. So rocky start.
Yeah.
But I stuck with it. I stayed at school, got through it. I didn't have any F's, D's, or withdrawals or anything. Just plugging along. I was on an athletic scholarship and actually then suffered two injuries that required surgery. In one in my freshman season and one in my sophomore season. So again, also threw a little bit of a wrench in. But I kept plugging along. I ended up transferring schools. I left softball and transferred to my state school. And had a little bit of a rocky transition. Had a couple other losses of family members that kind of just kind of rolling with the punches. And then so I finished my bachelor's degree. I got out and took a research technician job. Was there for 8 months, and then I decided to go back and complete 31 credits of post-bac work to bring my GPA up.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm just finishing up now. I'm in my last 4 credits, and I'm hoping to apply this cycle if I'm ready. So
Sure.
I have a 4.0 post-bac GPA, like I said, 31 credits, and I have a lot of credits overall. So that line doesn't want to budge, but I'm hoping that the 31 credits of 4.0 is enough to kind of keep me show that I'm dedicated and I can handle the higher level science courses.
Yeah. Good. So that's where we see on the graph the issues that you've been talking about really address these fluctuations. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it pretty much corresponds to it. I will say the only withdrawal in my transcript was the spring of 18. And I retook the course But besides that, yeah, I mean, they'll kind of correspond with those things.
Good.
My biggest concern, I guess, is so I listen to Ask the Dean all the time, and I did have kind of a rocky journey through undergrad, but I really don't want to come across as the student that tragedies kind of like always happening to, because I certainly I don't feel that I'm that way. I just had kind of a rocky time in this at this point in my life. But I don't want to scare away med schools because of
Sure.
some of the things I encountered in undergrad. So I've worked really hard to kind of during the postbac and which happened to be during a global pandemic too. so
Right,
um,
right, right,
so
right.
I'm working really hard to kind
Okay.
of prove that I'm not the student that tragedy kind of follows.
Okay.
So
Well, good, good. So I think definitely, the green line tells a story, and you've kind of
mhm,
described that story to us. What you're really counting on are those last 3 points of the green line, or the last 3 semesters that you've experienced at a 4.0 level, and that's obviously really strong work. And you're right, and that you're going to be counting on that in terms of the medical schools to which you're applying, really looking at that and saying, okay, the undergraduate record has been up and down and rocky, but she's gotten it together. She can do the work, that kind of thing. So yeah, so that looks good. If we can move down, let's go all the way down on your dashboard to the MCAT.
um
Look at that. And there's
yeah.
nothing there.
Yes. So I am in the middle of MCAT prep right now. My diagnostic obviously
Mhm.
isn't ideal at a 492, but I've been putting in a lot of work studying, and my exam is May 15th.
Okay, May 15th. All right. So you've still got, good 2 months to study, to little over 2 months to study for it and prepare, obviously. And what I would say in terms of the 492 diagnostic, that's not a bad diagnostic. I think, the reason you do a diagnostic is to say, where am I on this process? What are the areas that I seem to struggle in? What are the areas that I need to really improve on content and stuff like that? And that's the whole reason for a diagnostic exam. And so don't let that freak you out or discourage you or whatever. Now, what I'm going to be more interested in is once you start taking the practice tests,
Mm-hmm.
the full length practice tests, what do those scores look like? And are you, as you go along, is there improvement that you're showing as you go along through those practice tests? And so, do the thing that we talk a lot about on Am I Ready, as well as on the Ask the Dean, which is to try to simulate. Not at
Mm-hmm.
first, probably. The first few, I think, practice exams, really, doing it, focusing it on content review, on content where you're lacking, but also on test taking abilities and stuff like that. And then as you go along, closer to the actual test date, try to start simulating during those practice exams the what it's going to be like in the testing center, whether you're taking it in the morning or in the evening, whether you take it at the public library or at your school library or something where you can't control all the everything that's going on around you, because
Mm-hmm.
in that testing center, you're not going to have total quiet, and it's not going to be without distraction. And so you want to try to simulate that that as much as possible. So keep up the good work, study hard, keep your focus on that, and I would suspect you're going to be doing a lot better than that 492 on the diagnostic. So yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, I
Uh,
was encouraged because my section scores were pretty even.
Good.
Although that score wasn't ideal, my section scores are pretty even. So, as long as I kind of distribute my time equally with
Right.
practice and
Right.
content review, I'm hoping that it'll still continue to be an even
Right.
increase. So
Right. Now you're doing the study on your own, or you're doing a program, or what is that? What about that?
yeah, I'm doing the Blueprint online
Hmm.
MCAT prep course. It's
Yeah.
going really well. I have my first full length practice test coming up this weekend, so
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome. That's great. That's
yeah.
great. All right. Well, let's go back to Mapped and let's look at the activities that you've been about. So move on up a little bit to that. Good. So what we see here is a lot of activity hours, 9,708 to be exact, and they're spread around to quite a few things. Athletics, which you talked about briefly in your first, I guess, year or two of college. Done some research, paid employment, both, I guess, non-clinical and maybe some clinical, but we'll look at that, leadership and stuff. So if you'll go over to the left navigation bar and click on the activities tab there, and let's look at what we have for this. So we see initially here some shadowing that you've been doing very recently, it looks like, or some of it.
Um,
Why don't you describe that to us?
oh, I'm sorry, that date is actually wrong. But I've pretty much kept up shadowing
Mhm.
pretty consistently. I started in 2015, and I have some in 2017. Oh, that's 20. That should be 2020. I apologize.
Okay. Okay.
I've been doing the e-shadowing. It doesn't list all of them, so I'm not sure how this is organizing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is 2019. So it's pretty spread out.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
counting the e-shadowing, I have 83 hours.
Of
So
shadowing. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And those are with various types of specialties, or all the same, or what?
It's definitely spread out. General surgery, oncology, pediatric oncology. It is a little bit more concentrated in oncology, but yeah, general surgery,
Okay.
labor and delivery. So it's pretty spread out.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Good. So let's go on down a little bit farther. There, lots of shadowing. And it looks like you've been involved in some activities at your institutions. AMSA you have, as well as Premed Society at your institution. So those are great, being involved in those. Yeah, let's go to page 2. And why don't you describe what we're seeing on page 2 here?
So there's more shadowing. Um, as for leadership, I'm currently I was the staff coordinator. Now I'm the staff director at a summer camp for children with cancer. And a lot of clinical experience has come from there as well. So
Right.
I've been doing that. This will be my 8th year doing that.
Mhm.
My 2nd year as director, so it kind of spreads out clinical and
Yeah.
leadership.
Yeah.
I worked as the not medical clinical was my work as a pharmacy technician.
Mhm.
I did that while I was in college. I started working as a physical therapy aide my senior year of high school, and I
Mhm.
continued that through college. So that was quite a bit of my clinical experience.
Uh-huh.
I was a member of sorority, so I did some philanthropy work there.
Yeah.
I'm currently working at a hospital in Baltimore within the quality department. Right now, I'm screening for COVID,
Oh, okay.
like for patients coming in the hospital,
Mhm.
taking their temperatures, asking about
Mhm.
exposures, and
And
different things.
how long have you been doing that?
I just started in January.
Oh, okay. Okay. So a
Yeah,
couple months. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll definitely be doing that and through the application cycle.
Okay.
Um,
Good.
yeah, a lot of research. I had an internship doing research my senior year of college, and then I worked for 8 months in a mix of clinical um, and bench research.
Mhm.
And then it went back to school, so I had to leave that full time position. But Yeah, that's pretty much this page.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go to page 3 then.
There's some
And
more
that's the camp.
shadowing. Yeah, this is a camp for siblings, so I guess that would be it. Not technically patients, so not considered clinical, but it's their siblings. So a few hours there. I served on an executive board for a dance marathon, Children's Miracle Network dance marathon. So more leadership and volunteer, not clinical.
All right.
Just some stuff I did as a student athlete, and then this is my
Oh,
experiences
right. At the
as a staff director.
camp. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so it seems like a lot of what you do, particularly related to the camp and some of the other stuff that you talked about, kind of centers a little bit around your sister's illness and kind of what came from your having dealt with that with her. Is that sound accurate?
Yeah, and that's really kind of an integral part of my story. As I've been drafting my personal statement, I always kind of knew I wanted to be a doctor. So finding my original like seed, as Dr. Gray describes it,
Right.
was challenging, but I kind of had like a seed 2.0 with my sister. And yeah, a lot of it, like the Miracle Network dance marathon experience, like that was my interest in pediatrics and the camp for children with cancer. And then I was doing oncology research
Right.
after I graduated. So yeah, it is kind of centered around that. But I also don't want to come across as being like totally like only interested in that, because I am very open to
Sure.
other areas.
Yeah,
It's just kind of where.
yeah, it's just a part of your story and an
Mhm.
integral part of your story, as you've indicated. Now, go back to the activities on there, and let me just ask you this. I don't remember. Go back to page 1. Now, do you have on here as one of your activities the caregiving that you did for your sister? When was that?
That was my senior year of high school, and I went on part-time attendance as a student. And I mean, I was right there with my mom. I was one of her two primary caregivers. So
Right.
that was my senior year, and she
Oh,
passed away
okay.
on my first day of college. So I didn't think to include that. I'm
Well, I would include that because it did span post a little bit post high school,
mhm.
and this is clinical experience, and
Okay.
so I definitely think you should include that as a caregiver. You're 24/7, or a good deal of time that you're
Mhm.
dealing with your sister as a patient. You're dealing with her medications, or her doctor visits, or
Mhm.
hospice, or whatever she was involved in at the time. So
Mhm.
I definitely think you should include that as a clinical experience, even though it was mostly in high school, but it did span over the course of time into the summer after high school, and then and then it kind of ended at that point. But
Okay. So would you suggest that I just calculate it based
yeah,
like
just
from May to
yeah,
August?
yeah. I would just
Okay.
estimate, and you can estimate. It was approximately 30 hours a week, or 50 hours a week, or whatever. Whatever you think is appropriate in terms of the real amount of time that you were dealing with. Being with her and helping her through things and whatever. Hmm.
Okay, yeah, because I mean that's probably as well, not as clinical as it gets, but it's really important
Oh yeah, sure.
experience. And
Oh,
one of the biggest things I want to get across in my secondaries is that I have that understanding of kind of being on the other side as a caregiver, so I know how the exhaustion and emotions can feed into
yeah.
making really difficult decisions. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's go back to the dashboard, and I just want to check one thing on the dashboard. Look,
mhm,
scroll down to your activities again, and it looks like there's no big gaps. There's one sort of a gap between 2018 and 19. where you don't really have anything going on, and that's
Yeah, that
sometimes
shouldn't. I'm trying to
yeah,
think. I don't know that that's what I did there because
yeah,
like my work with Camp Sunrise was pretty consistent through that
yeah.
time. So I have to go back and look.
Yeah, you might just check the dates on, because some of
Yeah.
those dates you saw that were not accurate, and so just recheck those dates and stuff to make sure that you're inputting the correct date, so that it'll calculate it out
Okay.
appropriately.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of uh, medical schools that you're looking at, if you can go down to that part of the, it's on the left navigation bar, yeah, down there,
Mhm.
and let's look at the schools that you're sort of thinking about applying to. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you're making decisions about that?
Okay. Yeah. I must not have saved when I was adding schools last night, but my biggest focus is staying local to this area.
Hmm.
I'm really close with my family, and I kind of my partner is kind of put down as roots here. So my goal is to stay as close to like the Baltimore, Maryland
Yeah, Philly.
area.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, sure.
New Jersey, New York. There's a few schools
Right,
that aren't there
right.
that I was looking at, but
Okay.
yeah, Hopkins is a little bit of a reach, but I'm not sure why the other schools didn't save as I was inputting them.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm still kind of working on putting the school list
yeah,
together. But
yeah. Now,
yeah,
you're interested in applying MD and DO as well, or just MD?
so my plan was to apply MD
Okay.
um this cycle.
Okay.
Just based on like a few of my mentors. I don't have a recommendation letter from a DO, unfortunately, so I know
Mhm.
that'll roll out a lot of DO schools. But just based on some of the advice that I've gotten from my physician mentors that have known me for years and years, and are writing my letters of recommendation, they had suggested that I apply MD, and then if I don't get in, maybe because I have a pretty good job, and I kind of know because of my GPA that it might take me a couple cycles to get in. So
Mhm.
maybe like trying to get some DO shadowing in the next year while I'm getting through this application cycle,
Mhm.
if it's feasible for me to apply this year. Get some DO shadowing, and
Yeah.
getting a letter of recommendation from a DO, and then
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I would say, um, to that seems to me like to be a pretty good plan. And the what I would recommend in terms of that is not waiting until you know whether you got in or not, because if you wait, you're going to be behind the curve. And
Oh yeah.
so I would start, you know, this summer or early fall, getting some contact with DOs. If
Hmm.
you're anticipating, if you have to reapply, uh, needing that and stuff, then go ahead and start trying to get some contact with DOs, do some shadowing with some DOs, and then hopefully that will lead to a letter of recommendation that will be helpful. So, but I would say
Yeah.
start that on the front end. Maybe right after you get all the application stuff this year finished out and all that, then you can say, okay, I'm gonna make this effort to do that. That
Yeah,
sounds good.
definitely. And I'm hoping things start to open up a little bit because of COVID. I mean, we'll see with the
Yeah,
vaccines and such, but maybe
yeah.
there'll be more opportunity to get some more shadowing.
Yeah, I suspect there will be. I think
Mhm.
that makes sense to me that there will be. Yeah, yeah. That's. I mean, I think that looks really sounds appropriate to me. And basically, what I would say, if we can go back to your, let's see, back to the dashboard. Um, that you've got a rocky academic history, and that the med schools are going to see it. It's going to be pretty plain.
Mhm.
But I think what you're going to depend on the idea that you've got lots of clinical experience, you've got work history, all of that you're involved in. plus your most recent academic work is top notch. Now that the most recent work that you're doing, the post-bac stuff, is at UM?
No, it's at Towson
Towson.
University.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Towson. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it's at a university. My recollection is Towson's a big teacher college. Is that right? It's big into education and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and their nursing program is pretty good from what I hear.
Yeah.
And I both of my professor letters of recommendation are within the biology department and from Towson.
Yeah. That's
So
great.
they are hopefully really speaking to who I am today as opposed
Yeah.
to who I was back then.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I think that'll come out, pretty clearly, once admissions officers kind of get into the nitty gritty of your application and stuff. I think that's going to be pretty clear as a non-trad that that this is kind of the pathway you've gone through. So that's good. All in all, Katie, what I really see here is a very typical non-traditional student story. One where you, for whatever reason, there were struggles in your academic past that have caused your GPA to be lower, and but you've done a really good job of recovering from that, and really in the last 3 or 4 semesters. With I think you said 31 hours so far of work that you've really done super well. So that's good. The key, as you would guess, in some ways is going to be, your performance on the MCAT. What you want that to do is to really corroborate what we see on the last 3 or 4 semesters of your GPA, that you are capable of not only sitting in the classroom and getting the knowledge and performing well in the tests and stuff in the classroom, but that you can translate that to the critical analysis necessary on the MCAT. And so, do you have a notion of kind of what score you're sort of shooting for, or do you have any idea yet what that might be?
So my goal is 512. That would be a
Okay.
20-point increase from my diagnostic.
Yeah.
Of course, if I do better, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's kind of what I figured would be realistic, is like even maybe a little bit of a reach, but that's my goal.
No, good. I think it's good to have a goal, and I don't think there's anything wrong with a reach goal. I think if you're going to set a goal, set a good goal. Set a goal that's going to really challenge you and make you work for it and all that. So I think that's good. Yeah, that's a good goal to set. So what I would say, Katie, is that really what I'm really interested in here is your personal statement, I think, and the secondary statements and stuff are going to be really crucial to helping medical schools understand the story and the story of, and this is obviously a long-standing story for you that goes back years, and is really one that you need to translate well into a narrative in your personal statement. And so I'd really encourage you to, seek out advice from your advisor at Towson, people that are close to you, maybe some physicians that you work with or whatever, that can really give you input on what that is saying to them, and is it translating into, and you want critical eyes. You don't want people who love you to death. They're going to love whatever you show them. And so, like, mom isn't probably a very good, so you want to do people that'll really, that'll really give you, good advice on what they're reading and stuff. But as long as you do that, and the MCAT's, as I said, the MCAT's going to be pretty crucial for you. But I would say, to answer the question, am I ready? I would say yours is kind of a yellow light if we translate it into traffic signal. Red light means no, I don't think you're ready to apply. Green light is, yeah, absolutely, you're good to go. Yellow light is, well, it depends. There's a little bit of left of stuff that we don't know yet,
Mhm.
and particularly on the MCAT. And so what I would say is, based on those practice scores, and then obviously once you take the test in May and get that score back, you'll know a little bit better about how things look for you. But I would say go ahead and plan on applying this year. I like the idea of preparation for the following year of a reapplication if you needed to or had to, and I think the ideas that you've suggested about getting some experience with DOs and perhaps getting a letter from one of them to allow you to apply to some DO schools upon a second application sounds very reasonable to me. So I'd say go for it. I think, there's not a whole lot of exactness in the medical school admissions process, but there's one, and that is if you do not apply, you will not get in. So you got to put your name out there. You got to put your stuff out there and see what happens. Now, I will say the fact that you're wanting to stay geographically in the area that you've described, Baltimore, Philly, New Jersey, New York area, it's very competitive in the Northeast, and you know that.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to go into it with your eyes wide open and say, I know based on the realities of my life, I'm going to apply to these group of schools. I know that's going to mean something, and I know that potential has it that I may not get in because of the competitiveness of those schools. But you've got a secondary plan, and I think that's reasonable. So, I honestly, I say go for it. See what happens this year. Be prepared for the following year if that was necessary. And it sounds good to me.
All right, that sounds great. Yeah, I am reaching a little bit out, like, kind of all the way up and down the East Coast,
Sure.
into like Virginia, and just some schools that I've either looked at online or have spoken with somebody in admissions that kind of focus on like either the last 30 credits or the last 60 credits.
Right.
So yeah, I'm reaching out a little bit more towards the
Yeah.
Northeast or away from the Northeast, but
Yeah.
but yeah.
But I totally get it, wanting to stay, within not too far from family. That's your support network. That's those are the people that are important to you, that give you, moral support, and perhaps other ways that they're giving you encouragement and stuff like that. So it makes total sense to me. So, but yeah, good luck with all this. I hope it goes well. I hope that this time next year you're preparing to start medical school.
Thank you. I hope so too. Thanks for all your advice.
Absolutely. Keep in touch with us.
All right, I will. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.